the people unite.
Hey everybody, welcome. We the People Unite Wednesday. Today's our flagship live. How we doing? Panel?
Hanging in.
Living the dream.
We're here.
Today we have Katie and Maureen and Momo, Roseanne, and Andrea. And we have some important topics to talk to you about today. And if you are here with us, please shout out in the comments. Let us know you're here. Let us know where you're coming to us from. We like to talk to our viewers. So, to kick us off, I want to get started because we have a lot to cover. We have, where's my little thing? Breaking news. We have some breaking news. I don't know if you all have heard, and those of us from California have, but it seems like we have just been given a warning.
C News exclusive. The FBI warning police departments across California that Iran could retaliate against the West Coast. This would allegedly be done using drone technology.
ABC News has reviewed the alert from the end of February, and the alert said Iran planned to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles specifically against California in the event that the U.S. conducted strikes against Iran. The alert did not have any additional information on the timing, method, target, or perpetrators of the alleged attack.
Now, this warning comes as the Trump administration launches more attacks in Iran. ABC's Olivia Rubin is following the overnight strikes.
Today, fire and fury in the Strait of Hormuz. This cargo ship from Thailand on fire. Officials now say 3 crew members are missing, 32 rescued. Several cargo ships in the strait hit by unknown projectiles. According to the British Maritime Authority, Iran claiming responsibility for 2 of those strikes. The strait, a critical passageway for the world's oil supply, now essentially closed.
This is one of the pressure points that Iran knew he could use to really force the United States potentially to stop the conflict. They can do this successfully, they're going to stop 20% of the world's oil supply.
There are reports Iran is planning to use mines to further disrupt the flow of oil. The U.S. releasing a new video this morning of strikes on Iranian naval ships, saying it's destroyed 16 mine-laying vessels near the strait. The U.S. now says American forces have struck more than 5,500 targets inside Iran since the war began 11 days ago. U.S. Central Command giving an update this morning.
Every day, we're striking hard at Iranian ballistic missile and drones.
The human cost playing out too. In Tehran, thousands gathering in the streets for officials killed in some of the first strikes of the war. Now, to ease some of those concerns, dozens of countries are preparing for the largest release of oil from the strategic reserves ever. 32 member countries of the International Energy Agency, including the United States, today agreed to release 400 million barrels of oil from their reserves. It's a major move, though not quite clear just yet exactly how much oil will start flowing per day. Olivia Rubin, ABC News, Washington.
So, like we showed yesterday, our gas here in LA is what, 8 something a gallon? 8.50 a gallon.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Is that one station though that always does those prices? I forget what street it's on.
There were maybe I could pull it again for later. There were a few that we showed.
Yeah.
So it's that's not everywhere, but still one spot in LA. So I read some of the comments on this video. Some people are saying this is a false flag. This is bullshit. Don't trust the FBI. Maureen and I were texting back and forth. Why California? For one, Pendleton is a big military target. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think California, because it's the 4th biggest economy in the world.
Correct.
So if they want to try to take down something a little smaller, but still the United States, it would unfortunately make logistical sense to go to California.
Yeah. It could be a legitimate threat, or it could also be a red herring. It could be something to just try to disrupt the elections here.
Definitely that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely that. Sorry, I had to switch out my
Oh,
ears.
that's funny.
Momo, your mom is in the chat.
Yeah, I saw her.
So shout out. I saw Jazzy
Hi,
out
Mom.
there. I see Jazzy, Angry
Yeah.
Army Vet. Do I see everybody?
May Money.
May Money.
May. Hey, May.
Alexis. Yeah.
Oh, Jazzy. I didn't see Jazzy.
No Jazzy yet, but I'm sure she'll
Yeah,
pop in
she's
soon.
not here yet.
She might still be watching Joy Reid.
Yeah,
She
I
is switching over.
Yeah, I agree. We can't trust or believe anything that comes out of this administration or regime.
Well, Newsom is definitely taking it seriously. He's, he's activated OES and a bunch of other things. So, he's on it, thankfully.
So yeah, we'll let you know. We'll jump on if anything happens. And hopefully not. We're in South Orange County, and the kids just moved to Carlsbad, and Pendleton is closer to them.
That's close.
Yeah, very close.
So yeah, I'm a little concerned. California is not anyone's problem. Better focus on the real issue here.
That's true, but we have to remember that California is a part of the problem, which is this country, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It
is.
May must be in the other chat.
And we were also saying that obviously Trump doesn't give a shit about California.
Right.
So, so it's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so that was our breaking news. We want to move on to the big topics we have for today. And Momo is going to take lead on this. So what do you have for us, Mo?
What I have for us is something that's not being reported on a lot in the mainstream media, but it's very frightening. Is that a lot of the commanders and the people in charge of this war and of our military and our soldiers are promoting this as a holy war. They're promoting this as the beginning or the first strike or first step to Armageddon, which is very scary. So did you want to play that first
absolutely.
video?
Absolutely.
Or put up the first picture, rather.
Okay. Let's see, this one, right?
Yes. Now this right here is just, it's so antithetical to what our government is supposed to be. There's supposed to be a separation of church and state. Now, I'm not against praying over our leaders. I'm not against praying over our nation to protect us, but this kind of thing should not be going on because it just invokes a sense of exclusivity where you don't have a Muslim cleric in there. You don't have an atheist spokesperson in there. You don't have the different religions that make up our society and our culture represented here. All you see here are white evangelicals. And that's just not right.
Let me put up the next one.
Yeah. And this was just a few of the points in a larger article that is the link is gonna be in the description of the video. But there was an anonymous commander urged troops not to be afraid and said the war was biblically sanctioned and all part of God's divine plan, adding that President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to start Armageddon. Now that's just crazy on the face of it. That's just crazy. The US and Israel launched strikes on Saturday in Operation Epic Fury, which I'm calling Operation Epstein Distraction, with the Pentagon stating the goal to destroy Iranian missiles, Navy, and security infrastructure. Then we have the Military Religious Freedom Foundation reported it received over 200 calls from over 50 military installations since Saturday. And Mikey Weinstein, who we're going to see in a later video, demanded prosecutions under the Uniform Code of Military Justice for these commanders doing this, because there are commanders that are actually telling our troops this in briefings. They're also inviting troops to Bible studies in their homes and just gleefully, talking about Armageddon and the rivers of blood and everything that's going to be coming from this war. So I guess we could play the first video.
Okie dokie.
Commanders alleged to have told their troops below them that Donald Trump was anointed, quote, anointed by Jesus to lead the United States into war with Iran. This is follow-up reporting to the prior report that essentially the Huffington Post cited and others that the war in Iran was biblically divine, essentially invoking Christianity into the war. I want you to look at this email that was sent to the Military Religious Freedom, a nonprofit whistleblower organization that's exposing the quote, Mr. Weinstein, thank you for taking my calls and calls of some of my colleagues as to what happened earlier this morning in our combat unit. I am a blank in our unit. This morning, Commander opened up combat readiness status briefing by urging us not to be afraid as to what is happening with combat operations in Iran. He urged us to tell our troops that this was all part of God's divine plan. And he specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelation referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ. He said that President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth. He had a big grin on his face and said all of this, which made his message even more crazy. This is pretty crazy stuff. I'll have more updates for you soon. Feel free to go read the full report on the Huffington Post website. They did a write-up on it as well. Spread the word, follow for more. We have some news.
That's just nuts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Now, did you want to play the next video with the Weinstein guy talking to Democracy Now? And then we could kind of, unless you guys want to discuss this a little bit first, or you want to play the video first?
Well, let's play the video. I have a couple questions for us and our viewers. One of the questions, do you think that framing this as a geopolitical conflict or framing this war, right, this conflict as a religious prophecy, does it make diplomacy and de-escalation harder?
I believe so. Yes. Because just the same way in the past, we've said that it was very, very hard to negotiate with the regime in Iran and in different places where their regime is religious, it's clerical, because we look at them as zealots and they're very, very firm in their views. There's no negotiation. It's one way or another. And so it makes it very, very difficult for diplomacy to take place. So I would imagine if you have two sides that both think that they're on the righteous side, I can't see where there's much diplomacy that can be had there.
I was thinking that if anybody think Donald Trump is a Christian or any of his friends, they gonna burn anyway. So I don't know. Donald Trump a Christian, nothing he's done has been Christ-like.
Yeah.
I don't understand that the United States isn't and has never been a Christian nation.
No,
we founded this country to get away from religious persecution.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the history in a little bit, but it's interesting to me. This reminds me of 9/11 and Osama bin Laden and how we the infidels, we the religious, pedestal that they put themselves on and always come after us for. How are we any better than that?
Right.
In this case.
Right.
It's fanaticism. And that's scary.
Yeah.
Man, the AM Pope need to go away.
let's read what Manifest Destiny's core to our nation's rise, religious doctrine going hand in hand with nationalism has been huge forever. U.S. is very much like the Holy Roman Empire with zones.
Yeah, right.
It's true. There's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, but
let's okay.
They don't
is
uphold
it this
it in the U.S.
Yeah, this the one?
Yes, this is the one.
.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran rages on, U.S. military commanders have reportedly been invoking extremist Christian rhetoric about biblical end times, selling the conflict to American troops as a holy war. The watchdog Military Religious Freedom Foundation says it's been inundated with more than 200 complaints from members across all branches of the U.S. military regarding these comments. One combat unit commander reportedly said the war is part of God's divine plan, and that, quote, President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth, unquote. For more, we go to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where we're joined by Mikey Weinstein, founder and president of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. In this last 5 minutes we have, Mikey, if you can talk about the complaints you've received and who are these commanders who are saying this is a holy war?
Yes, Amy. Our foundation, our main purpose is to protect the wall separating church and state in the technologically most lethal organization ever created by our species, which is the U.S. military. As soon as the war began last Saturday, a week ago, this past Saturday, we started getting inundated by calls from members of the military indicating that supervisors and commanders across the branches, both in the CONUS, which is the continental United States, and internationally, were invoking the fact that this was great news. They were gleeful. They were joyful. They were euphoric because this was a signal that pursuant to the Christian eschatological aspects of the end times in the book of Revelation, that all of this was serving as, if you will, an accelerant or lubricant to bring their version of weaponized Jesus back, which I will also make it clear includes a metric of a 200-mile-long river, 4.5 feet deep, Amy, filled with nothing but the human blood of those that their version of Jesus is slaughtered at the Battle of Armageddon. So we were getting 15, 20, 25 calls a day the first several days that we were out there. We finally broke this story with journalist Jonathan Larson, and then it went viral. And so what we are reporting now is that we have over 200 complaints, and that we have from 50 different installations. But it's terrifying when you try to put a theological perspective from Christian extremism with what's happening right now, particularly having listened to your whole show today. I'm reminded of the second inaugural speech by Abraham Lincoln when he chastised both sides in the Civil War for trying to say that God was on their side, which exacerbated the violence, the bloodshed, the injuries, and the death.
Last month, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth invited the controversial Christian nationalist pastor Doug Wilson to lead the Pentagon's prayer service. Wilson's opposed Muslims holding public office and does not believe women should be allowed to vote. Can you talk about Hegseth's tenure as head of the defense, what Trump calls the War Department, and what concerns you most about his conflation of church and state?
I was warned by your producers not to cuss. So I will refer to Hegseth as a piece of feces as opposed to the regular word. He's viewed by senior leadership as a bully and a poser. He is nothing but a Christian nationalist lackey. You forgot to mention, or I'll mention that Doug Wilson also believes that the Civil War was justified biblically. And of course, that a lot of slave owners, he reminds everybody, had a really nice relationship, with their slaves, the same way they did with their living room furniture. He believes that the Jews killed Jesus. Muslims have no right to participate in government. And if you're LGBTQIA+, you probably don't have a right to live. The bottom line is Hegseth has created a template that the only approved member of the U.S. military is to be straight, white, Christian nationalist, and male. So why is anybody surprised that with that template going down in a hierarchical organization, tribal, adversarial, communal, and ritualistic like the U.S. military, that you have subordinate commanders, all of whom are trying to get promoted, that are following the exact same thing? We saw this happen before when the Israeli Defense Forces moved into Gaza and started attacking the Palestinians. We had, in a much smaller way, we had commanders saying, well, this is also sparking the Battle of Armageddon. But whenever you attach a an extremist aspect of any religious faith to that machinery, Amy, of the faith responsible for war, we do not end up with little creeks, streams, ponds, or lakes, Amy. We end up with one thing: oceans and oceans of blood, like the color of my shirt.
We have 20 seconds. What risks do service members face for reporting religious comments made by U.S. commanders?
If they do that officially, they become essentially what we call a tarantula on a wedding cake. Amy, you and I have been to lots of weddings. Tarantulas on wedding cakes, that doesn't bode well for the tarantula or the wedding cake.
Mikey Weinstein, founder and president of Religious Freedom Foundation, speaking to us from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that does it for our show. Produced with Mike Burke, Dina Guz.
Wow. So that's an interesting analogy. Metaphor, tarantula on a wedding cake. Never heard of that one.
I've never heard of that one.
And one of the things that was touched on in Huffington Post that he didn't get into in the video is that it puts the soldiers in a very precarious position, because if you're being proselytized by a commanding officer, you can't say, get out of my face, or you're going to be held up on insubordination. And then if they make a complaint to a chaplain, well, most of the chaplains are Christian chaplains. So once you make a complaint, you're outing yourself. And then that's when he came up with the analogy of the tarantula on the wedding cake, because you're just sitting there like a fly in a bowl of rice. There's nowhere you can hide. So they're being put in a really, really precarious position.
Yeah, I mean, what if you're Muslim, if you're Jewish, if you're atheist, if you're any other religion in the military, how are you supposed to feel about this? I mean, it's just nuts.
That's what they say. It's so demoralizing, and they're having monthly prayer meetings now with Pete Hegseth and this pastor with soldiers, and it's just a ridiculous thing. It's like, what are you going to do if it's an impossible position to be in, and it's just so it's illegal. You're not supposed to be doing this. There's supposed to be separation of church and state, and they're just wondering how much if he's doing permanent damage, temporary damage to our military. We don't know, but it's very demoralizing for the soldiers.
What about thou shalt not kill?
Well, I wrote down a couple things watching that video. You ever notice how it seems like there's two vastly different versions of Jesus that they're portraying? Because it's the normal people who view Jesus and God as loving and forgiving, and he's the one that hung out with lepers and unmarried women and was baptizing babies. And then you've got the white Christian nationalist Jesus, who's like putting people in rivers of blood and Armageddon, end of the world. So that's just such a big contradiction. And then that Trump was asleep during that prayer meeting.
Probably.
Yeah, that's what I
was
think.
going to bring that as he was. He had the place to doze again. Yeah.
Angry Army vet, her comment about file an EO complaint, an IG complaint. That's also covered in the Huffington Post article. You can, click the link in the description. But yes, one of the non-commissioned officers on behalf of about 15 or 20 soldiers filed a complaint so that the soldiers would not have to do it themselves and out themselves. So he filed a complaint and kept the soldiers anonymous.
What about 2 Corinthians?
Oh, Jesus.
These are not Christians.
No, they are not.
No.
And as a Christian myself, this is part of the reason why this particular topic caught my eye, because I am a Christian. I am a woman of faith, and the Jesus that I believe in it's nothing like this, whoever this God is that they pray to, or this Jesus that they're talking about. It's not my Jesus. It is not by Jesus.
All the little kids, they starving, taking away SNAP benefits,
Yeah, it's just no.
and just starting a war and killing all them kids at one time, dropping a bomb on the school. That on, yeah, right.
Well, and we're going to learn. Yeah, go ahead, Andre. I'm sorry. Did you have
No,
more?
I said, but thank you. That's what I said for Monique. I said, thank you.
Nothing prevents any U.S. citizen from studying the Bible with any coworker. They are not forced.
Soldiers are. They're compelled to
Soldiers
listen to their commanders. They have to sit there and take it.
Yeah,
They can't say no.
Yeah.
Donald Trump.
I think, and regardless of, they shouldn't be in the military.
Right.
Period. And so what we'll learn, because we're going to cover a little bit of history of Christian nationalism. It's not a religion per se as much as a political ideology. Yes. And so that's what we have to, I think, keep in mind and keep that separate.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't have a religious bone in his body.
Okay.
Oh gosh, no.
He goes to the religion of money. That's all he cares about.
Neither does Hexeth. That man should not, well, we all know he shouldn't be heading up his.
No.
He's very spiritual.
Who?
Hexeth.
Spiritual, yes, he is.
Yeah.
Did you want to play this video from the Huffington Post?
You know what? I think that has less to do with the topic and more to do with his rationalization of the war. So, you know, I'm not, you know, it might be interesting, but I think it might be off topic.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, let me remove that. All right. And what else, Mo, on this that we should know about?
That's about it. Like I said, the Huffington Post article is quite extensive. It goes into a lot more detail, but I just wanted to touch on those basic topics. Ooh, I'm echoing. Can you hear that?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
You only need 3%.
All right.
People think that the No Kings Day is going to hit that 3.5%.
I hope so. We haven't hit it so far.
No.
All right. Well, the one thing we like to do is we do our research and we like to do a little education along the way of our topics. So one of the things when Mo talked about this topic is maybe we should dig into Christian nationalism a little bit because, like I said, it's not as much of a religion as it is a political ideology, right? That merges religion with government and power. That's what we're dealing with. So Christian nationalism is a belief that the United States was founded as a Christian nation, and the government institutions should reflect and defend Christian values. And so the historical context, as I said, Christianity is a religion practiced by millions. Christian nationalism is a political ideology that merges religion with state power. And so that distinction matters because the debate is not about whether people are allowed to be religious. The debate is about whether government, public institutions, or the military should be shaped by a specific religious worldview. And that's where we're coming at this from. And a useful point for all of our viewers is that many Christians themselves oppose Christian nationalism, as Mo said, because they see it as politicizing faith. Politicizing faith. And that's exactly what they're doing for power. So I had this little visual created for us. And yes, it's AI generated. I'm an AI gal. So if we look at the context of the founding principles, right? So the Constitution establishes religious freedom and prohibits the government establishment of religion. So everything that they're doing goes against the Constitution. Constitution never mentions God or Christianity, right? The First Amendment prohibits the establishment of a national religion. And Article 6 says that there can be no religious test for public office. The founders had seen the damage caused by religious wars. Katie, you brought that up. In Europe, and deliberately sought to separate church authority from state power. That's what we were running from. So Jefferson described a wall of separation between church and state. James Madison warned that mixing religion and government corrupts both. And well, once I get through this first pillar, then we'll talk about that and go to the next one. I don't know if people realize or remember that Freemasonry was some of the foundation of some of our founding fathers, right? So Freemasonry in the 1700s was a fraternal movement, popular among political leaders, military officers, intellectuals. But what it emphasized was religious tolerance, moral virtue, civic responsibility, reason and liberty as enlightenment ideals. Here, Keisha's on. Okay. So George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Paul Revere, John Hancock. It was the cornerstone at the U.S. Capitol. When they laid the cornerstone for the U.S. Capitol, they did so in a Masonic ceremony in 1793. So when people talk about, well, we were founded on Christianity and Christian values, and it was not. It was more about religious tolerance, moral virtue, very different. So because Freemasonry generally supported the idea that people of different faiths should coexist peacefully under a neutral government. That aligns with the foundation of our country. Many founders were not trying to build a Christian state. So I just want to re-emphasize that.
Yes.
So before we go to the 1950s, I just want to get people's thoughts on that aspect of our founding.
Yeah, I think that's what confuses people. My grandfather was a Freemason. I found that out actually at his funeral. I had no idea, but he grew up in the Baptist church. You know, he was a Baptist, but I learned a lot about Freemasons when I discovered that he was one. And I think that's where some confusion comes in, because I think people confuse the Freemasons with a religious organization, and they really were not. You know, they each had their own religions, but they were, like you said, a fraternal organization that believed in religious neutrality when it came to the government and religious tolerance.
Hi, Lori.
Shout out to Lori King. Hey,
Hey,
hey.
Hi, Lori.
Anybody else on our founding?
Talking about immigration, way back when, which my family was in the 1700s, late 1700s, they came over, they were Quakers, and they were being discriminated against in England.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm just saying, most of our immigration is escaping, not honoring other people's religions. It's so hard to see doing this right now. It makes no sense, as I always say. Yeah.
And something to remember too is, like, we don't think the founding fathers were perfect by any means. Like, they owned slaves and did all sorts of terrible things.
Yeah.
But the basis of the founding of this country, again, religious persecution.
Yeah, and that's the goal for highlighting this. We're talking about the history of Christian nationalism, right? And what it's not. So add a stage. All right. So let's move on to the 1950s, because this is where under God was added to the Pledge of Allegiance. Some people think it was always there. It wasn't always there. It was added in the 1950s, right? So 1954, under God was added to the Pledge of Allegiance. In 1956, In God We Trust was adopted as the national motto. So these changes occurred during the Cold War as the US tried to distinguish itself from atheist communism. There's always a catalyst, right? So that means some of the religious language Americans now associate with government is not actually from the founding era. It comes from mid-20th century political identity building. And so a lot of what people think of America's original religious language and government was actually layered in during the Cold War. During the Cold War. So any comments on that?
Do you think that that was done because of the times that we were in, the Cold War, and things were so tense? Was that supposed to comfort the nation?
It was against communism, right? So communism, the atheism of communism, I think they were trying to, from what I read, distinguish ourselves differently from that. So that was part of it. But that's a great question.
Well, my first thought was, who was president during that time? I forget.
Eisenhower?
Are we doing a history test? Somebody look it up. We should know all of our presidents in the 1950s.
I was little then too, but I do believe he was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or
Truman.
It was Eisenhower.
Well,
in
it was
54.
In 54, yeah.
Maureen said it with very a certainty of I remember Eisenhower being president. That the same way I remember that Carter was president when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. I admitted to it. Okay.
Look, I get it.
Yeah.
There, it's good to have that knowledge just right there.
I'm trying to think. I think for me, the first president I really remember paying attention to was Jimmy Carter, maybe, or Reagan. I can't remember.
Kennedy for me, because
Kennedy?
he came and dedicated the dam when I was a kid, and pretty much the whole town went out there and saw him speak.
John Kennedy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually campaigned for Robert Kennedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like 7, but I remember it. I do remember them.
Yeah, they assassinated him the day after my finals. Said I was going to go out to the airport.
Damn.
I just remember, I am not a crook. I am not a crook.
Trump, what we did to Nixon.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. 76. That was Jimmy Carter, right? I was about 10.
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
That's
so speaking of that era, that time, so the 70s through the 80s, we saw the rise of the religious right. So this is kind of where it starts.
Yeah, the moral
evangelical movements, moral majority, Christian coalitions. Some of the things I pulled from that, the groups promoted the idea that America should be restored. Where have we heard that? Restored to its Christian foundations. So issues that they mobilized around included abortion, school prayer, LGBTQ rights, perceived moral decline, important names, Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, who were very influential in the evangelical kind of movement, right? So this was a period where faith-based political activism becomes deeply tied to conservative electoral strategy.
Well, let's talk about that, because during this time, who was one of Ronald Reagan's key advisors? It was Roy Cohn, who we now know was a gay man and closeted. And it kind of reminds me of Lindsey Graham.
I was going to say Dane.
Yeah.
And well, no, I'm not going to start guessing who's part of the LGBT community who has not completely said it out loud. But during this time, you have someone who is like an architect of some of the worst anti-LGBTQ legislation, who was gay himself.
Yep.
It's absolutely abhorrent to think that you would be responsible for making life worse for people who fall in the same group as you.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even imagine.
A way to mask. It's like that mask. It's a way to mask. People often do that. It's a psychological phenomenon.
But there's so much damage. Like that was during the AIDS crisis, and so many gay men died. And not just gay men, like so many people died from AIDS because Ronald Reagan refused to do anything to acknowledge that it existed.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at all the people now with all the masks on their faces, that just masks over their face, hands in their ears. Like I don't know how they can just live with themselves or sleep at night or have any conscience whatsoever.
Yes, Angry Army Vet, a lot of self-hatred.
Yeah. 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 So this was so based on the research I was looking at here, when we look at how this ties a little bit to what's going on right now, because a lot of this, we're seeing the tie back to that time is Christian Zionism, right, in the Middle East. So this is one of those important bridges between Christian nationalism and this current time that we're in right now. Because Christian Zionism is a belief that the modern state of Israel fulfills biblical prophecy. Conflicts in the Middle East may precede Armageddon. These events ultimately lead to a second coming of Christ. Not all Christians believe this, but has been influential part of American evangelical politics. We've seen that. So we're starting to see the connection. So we've got political pressure for strong U.S.-Israel alignment, framing Middle East conflicts as prophetic, cultural influence in parts of the military, and we're going to see where that starts. And we're going to talk about 2025 as we get a little bit closer. But I want to now jump to the 2000s, because in doing this research, a few things surprised me that I wasn't aware of. Military religious influence were also concerns in the early 2000 to 2010s. There were reports then of religious pressure and proselytizing in military ranks. So you had everybody hear anything called the Jesus rifles?
No.
So one of the clearest examples is there was a controversy over Bible verse references on military rifle optics during Iraq and Afghanistan wars. So the company Trishicon, I believe is how it's pronounced, supplied optics used by U.S. troops, and those sites reportedly included coded Bible verse references, such as John 8:12 and 2 Corinthians 4:6. These references were stamped onto military optics used in combat. So obviously it became quite controversial. Critics argued that this created the impression of religiously sanctioned war, especially in Muslim majority countries where U.S. troops were operating. And then after media reports and public criticism, the company removed the references from military products. In the middle of the Iraq War, U.S. rifle sites actually carried, in the actual war in Iraq, you could see these rifles, these Bible verses on these rifles, and people would report it. There was another Air Force Academy religious pressure scandal. So There was pressure to attend Christian events, and these were to the cadets. I actually went to the academy to visit in like 1978 or 79. Such an amazing place, and you had such reverence for this academy and for the men and women who belonged there and who went there. But they were pressuring them to attend Christian events, pressuring them to convert. They had religious messages in official emails. Again, proselytizing by staff and cadets, claims that non-Christians were treated as outsiders. And just so you know, that word means the action of attempting to convert someone from one religion or belief to another, if you are curious. So it suggested that religious pressure was not coming from peers, but could be embedded within elite military training environment. Investigations followed, and the Pentagon reinforced policies on protecting religious freedom and neutrality in leadership. And then the last one in this era, I'll show, let me pull this down. I had no idea this was going on. Did you guys in the 2000s?
No.
I did not know. Mm-mm.
Yeah, this is some crazy stuff. Hey, Jazzy. Good to see you. Okay. So this guy right here, this was back in 2012. So what happened with Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Dooley, there was a lawsuit that was threatened because he taught an elective course called Perspectives on Islam and Islamic Radicalism at the Joint Forces Staff College in Virginia. So the course materials argued the United States might ultimately need to wage war, a total war against Islam, and even discuss scenarios involving the destruction of Islamic holy cities such as Mecca and Medina, referencing World War II tactics like Hiroshima. After a student complaint and media exposure, the course drew national attention. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Martin Dempsey, called the material totally objectionable, against our values, and not academically sound. So they had an investigation. Of course, he was suspended. The course was permanently discontinued, and he was removed from his teaching duties. Again, this was 2012. 2012. So I don't know if anybody cares what happened to his career. He received negative officer evaluation report. In the military promotion system, a negative evaluation can effectively stall a career. I don't know. Do you think more should have happened to this guy?
I think he should have been dishonorably discharged.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Most definitely.
Yeah. So thoughts on some of the, like I said, never knew this was happening. This was happening.
It makes a lot of sense, though, why we have so many commanders now that are so easily are going along with this right now.
Yeah, where are the generals standing up and saying, oh, hell no?
Right.
I just think about the number of people who are self-proclaimed Christians in this country who think that Christians are being persecuted. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Not just Christians.
Are probably some.
These are the same people that think these are the same people that think that white people are being discriminated against.
I was just going to say, not just Christians, but white Christians.
Yeah. Yeah. Very same.
Like Christianity is the dominant religion in this country for people who are religious. And the idea that Christians are being persecuted in this country is laughable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that like something like this could happen, that this man, Matthew Dooley is his name, the fact that he could get away with even trying to do something like this speaks to the fact that Christianity is the dominant religion in this country. Because imagine if he tried to teach Islam, or he tried to teach Buddhism, or he tried to teach Shinto.
That's what I'm saying. Imagine if they invited everyone to the temple or to the mosque. You know, it's like, what if, imagine inviting soldiers into your home to study the Quran. You know, it wouldn't be tolerated. It wouldn't be tolerated.
No.
Angry Army Vet brings up a good point.
But this is, and maybe our viewers can chime in here, because before we started this, I did a poll and I said, do you think religion belongs in the military? We had 42% say yes.
Wow.
So those of you who said yes, explain why. We need to also understand the impact of chaplains that began going beyond pastoral. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. We have a lot of questions about a lot of things. So to wrap up our little journey here, Christian nationalism, this is where we are today. Now we have prophecy and geopolitics entering the frame. Concerns over religious prophecy narratives in these Middle East conflicts that Mo articulated so well in the first part of our program. This is what's happening. And if we tie this back, if I can go back to my notes, if we remember something called Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation. So we know that there's an overlap here between Project 2025 and Christian nationalists. So Project 2025 is that governing blueprint, while Christian nationalism is the ideology that is the foundation of that particular blueprint. The link is that critics say some Project 2025 goals align with Christian nationalist priorities, especially around restoring traditional family structures and actually the role of women, which I want to highlight the fact that Keisha had this great topic about that in one of our Voices from the Edge lives that she pulled out into a segment that got us almost 20,000 views. So this is a hot topic. I will link it in the description. Please, everybody go watch that. We had, I think, what, Keisha, 800 comments or something in that?
Close to 1,000 actually at this point.
Yeah, it keeps building. So this is all what is behind the Christian nationalist movement, is what's behind Project 2025. So you have traditional family structures. So they want women back at home. They want women married. They want women having children. They want they want to have privilege, and privileging their religion and public life, and the reshaping the government institution around those specific values around Christianity. Where does that leave the rest of the country? So it's not a religious text, but critics argue that parts of its agenda reflect the worldview promoted by Christian nationalists.
I'm coming late to the show, so apologies if we already discussed this, but did we talk about the particular brand of Christianity that J.D. Vance follows, where, and Joy Reid did a wonderful show about this, where they talked about the idea that I am my brother's keeper and that you're supposed to look out for your neighbor. And if your neighbor is starving, then you help out your neighbor so your neighbor doesn't starve. And J.D. Vance's brand of Christianity believes that we misunderstand what that means. It's not about your neighbor. It's about your family. It's about the people in your nuclear family, essentially. Your neighbor has nothing to do with Nothing to do with it.
If
So this
it's
is not about Jesus taking care of everyone, looking out for the whole community. It's just about your family. It is
Yeah.
the most selfish, self-serving brand of Christianity I've ever heard of. It is
This
a
is-
bastardization
yeah.
of Christianity.
Exactly, Keisha. And this is what happens when grubby little men get their paws on scripture and contort it into what they believe themselves instead of just reading scripture for what it is. Because nowhere until I think the 1950s was homosexuality even mentioned in the Bible. Abortion is not mentioned or discussed in the Bible. None of it is. And so this is what happens when man's ideology clashes with what Jesus actually preached.
Well, isn't it also true? I've studied a lot of religions. I'm one of those spiritual, not religious people. But there are a lot of books of that Bible that were removed, that were not put in a lot of the versions of the Bible that people see today.
Yes.
Is that your understanding as well?
Yes. As a matter of fact, my mom shared a video with me. I'm going to find it in my history and I'm going to send it to you guys. Maybe we can link it in someplace. I think there's upwards of 80 something or 90 something actual books in the Bible that were removed, when the Roman Catholics came into power and all of that. So it has just been so distorted over the centuries.
And there are a lot of scholars believe that in the missing years of Jesus, he actually went to India to study with the gurus there, or the equation, what he equates to gurus.
There's also a link to Ethiopia where there's a lot of stuff in the Ethiopian Bible that is no longer in our Bible that was sort of commandeered by the Roman Catholics.
Yeah, exactly. So again, we're not getting historical truth.
No.
Well, if JD Vance is about protecting his family, why doesn't he ever stand up for his wife and children?
Well, that's not on brand. They're brown.
But also, and another thing, someone I believe brought it up in the comments that the Bible, you have to here it is. You have to think about how many times the Bible has been rewritten and how it could have been poorly translated, or like people don't try to go back and find even somewhat original text to try to even properly translate it. So we don't even know what is or isn't true in some points.
Yeah, exactly. So I think in a nutshell, all the points that are made, we just have to remember that Christian nationalism is not a religion the way we know it. It's not Christianity. It's a political ideology. And so if people really, truly understand that, and you're talking about, when you talk about bans and you talk about the selfishness, Andrea brought this for us today. So while our government's busy cutting SNAP and healthcare for the working families, Pete Hegseth spent $2 million on king crab, $7 million on lobster tails, and nearly $100,000 on a grand piano in the month of September. This is where your tax dollars are going. Isn't this administration isn't this supposed to be the administration that's targeting waste, fraud, and abuse?
Well, we would bring your father, Lori.
I do want to point out, just for the sake of additional context, that part of the reason why they spent this money is because they have a use it or lose it clause in the funding that they get. So they kind of had to spend the money.
They could have spent it on people.
Exactly. They could have spent it in more responsible ways instead of basically living it up on the American dime, especially since Republicans have complained a lot about what they see as wasteful spending.
Yeah.
But instead they're they're having lavish dinners.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
disgusting.
I mean, those of us in the from corporate, we get that, we understand that, but again, it's how you spend the money. And I'm sorry, this does not look good. When people are losing snap and can't afford to put dinner on the table, you're having freaking crab and lobster. I mean, it's just a slap in the face.
Yeah.
There are people in this country who've never had lobster.
Right.
Would love to have lobster. Would love to dine up with salmon.
Yeah.
But Pete Hegseth in his tight ass suits gets to have that.
Robert De Niro said Donald Trump will always be the stupid people's president.
He had a really good interview with Nicole Wallace.
Yeah.
I highly recommend
me to
watching.
tears. Oh man, it brought me to tears.
Yeah, it was
That
good.
interview was good.
But he kept saying what we've all been saying. I don't understand. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lori King Crab right now is really, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's really expensive right now.
You did point that out because we were talking about, wasn't it like the 4th of July? There was some like holiday.
Thanksgiving. Because I like to have crab at Thanksgiving. It's like, not this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was great. Like $65.
Thank you, Donald Trump, for our fast food.
Have you guys seen the thing about Trump buying everyone the same pair of shoes and guessing their shoe size? And so, like, there's a photo of Rubio with way too big of feet or shoes because Trump is intuition.
Well, he's the idiot that put them on, right?
Yep.
So,
good Lord.
Come on, man. Your boss buys you a pair of shoes that are too big. You just very respectfully tell him that's not your size, but you're going to put them on like an idiot and flop around like a clown. Come on.
Yeah, they do. The stupid people's president.
Oh, get some back.
All right. Well, that hour went really fast. Rubio's a very small man. I saw him in person. Oh, you did?
In more ways than
Yeah. Yeah. Very small man. Cowards. So these were great topics today. Thank you, Mo, for bringing this to the table. And thanks for everybody for your commentary. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Does anybody on the panel have any more comments before we close today?
I do. I don't know if this is off topic or not, but I was raised as a Christian, and Black Christianity is a different brand of Christianity than Christian nationalism. But I never took to it. And I remember when I was 18, the day that I was like, I'm done with this. I was watching TV. I turned on the TV and there was a Black pastor on. And it was one of those things on like the 700 Club where they always had some pastors talking, and it was a Black pastor. And he was saying, well, homosexuality is a sin, and people who are sexual go to hell. And I was in high school in the 90s, and it was when people still were kind of burgeoning, coming out. Like people would whisper like, oh, I think that person's gay, or I think that person's gay. And people still aren't comfortable with like admitting or coming out. It's not like today where kids were like 12 and they're like, I'm gay. It was and I remember thinking like, I don't understand why this is a problem. Like, surely no one is like trying to be gay, because it seems like that would make life harder for them to choose the tougher path. This just seems like how people are. And I just had enough. Between that and like church gossiping about what everyone else was wearing,
right?
I just didn't understand how this was a religion.
And if you truly believe in God, God doesn't make any mistakes, right? There are gay animals in nature. How do you explain that?
Yeah.
How do you explain that? And as far as I'm concerned, you know, everything is created by God and he makes no mistakes. And so therefore, it is not up to me to judge you, your lifestyle, or anything else. You know, my Jesus taught me to love and embrace everyone. And I leave it at that. You know, your lifestyle is your lifestyle, and it just, no judgment here. I just don't think it belongs.
No.
It doesn't. And I say that not because I want to judge Christians. Believe what you want. Leave me out of it. Out of it.
Yeah.
As long as we can believe what we want and not hurt other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What happened? Yeah, what happened to live and let live?
Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Live and let live. Go live your life. Let us live ours.
You cannot
Get the nose
legislate.
out of
You
it.
can't legislate morality. You know, everyone is going to live the way that they want to live. You know, so if you don't want somebody stomping on your beliefs, don't stomp on theirs.
My rationale is just as long as you're not hurting yourself or anyone else, live your life. It's not my place to judge.
Exactly. Yeah.
Also, we have
angry army that said when my sister came out, they called them during a prayer circle around her to pray away the gay. After that, she tried to unalive herself.
Oh
my God.
Oh, well, they used to do terrible things, yeah. Were they treated gay men way back when?
It's really hard. My older son is gay. And I remember when he came out to me and was asking for my support. I hopefully knowing that, of course, you're my son. You always have my support, no matter. And I think it was hard because some of his friends were being disowned by their parents, were being kicked out of houses by their parents. And those are things in the community that the people we love have to watch and have to see. So I asked him, one time, if there's one message, from the community, what do you want people to know? And he said, just to be accepted. Just to be accepted, it just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And to see what these kids are going through, it just breaks my heart.
I remember leading into that when I was in middle school. Like, I knew right away that it was never a choice. And I would see so many of my friends, tell me like they realized that they were gay. And we lived in such a conservative back hick country area. And it was like, that this isn't a choice, because why would they choose to get the crap kicked out of them? Because the other kids in school just would be absolutely awful to them, and that's not a choice. They can't help it, and the way that you're acting just makes them hate themselves even more, and that's not okay.
I'm glad that we live in this time and in California.
Yeah. I'm thinking about my great nephew who just came out.
It's much better. So everyone, please like and subscribe, because it does help our content get out to more people. We are so grateful for all of your support. And if you are so inclined to support us even further, please consider becoming a member. It's just a small, tiny amount. And we love having you here for our lives Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you again. Everybody, hang in there. We are going to get through this. We always say that. We are going to get through this.
Yep.
That which does not kill us makes us stronger, as they say. So we love you. We love you. We appreciate you. And please join us on Friday, 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. I had to do my math real quick. I'm tired today. All right, guys. Love ya. See you Friday.
Bye, everyone.
We the people unite.